I get the question a lot from my college students, but I know it's a question that many of us in the church ask. I mean, and it's a question that's actually been on my heart this morning. The question goes something like this: Shane, how do I know the will of God? How do I know the will of God in my heart, in my life? Like, how do I hear the will of God? Like, how do I hear His voice? How is it that I connect with the Lord so much that I'm able to know His good and perfect will for my life, or even for those that I love around me? How do I hear the voice of God? How do I know God's will? Well, the answer comes from really a simple thing that we can even learn and see and engage in the world today. It's like this. Well, how do you hear my voice right now? How do you hear my voice? How do you know my thoughts? Well, you put yourself in a position where you can hear me. Like maybe right now you like need to turn up your stereo or your computer because what you're hearing right now maybe not as able to hear as much. So you put yourself in a position to hear it, and then you do the best you can to amplify what it is that is being said. And if you weren't putting yourself in front of the screen or within earshot of this video, then it would be weird for you to be complaining that you don't hear my voice, that you don't know my thoughts, or in some sense you don't know my will. So my simple answer to this question is, if you want to know the will of God, if you want to hear the voice of God, put yourself in a position to hear Him speak. As a matter of fact, this is somewhat what it is that you find in Psalm chapter 1. The very first psalm out of the 150 psalms in the English Bible starts off by saying this: "Blessed is the one who does not walk in the step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers." Matter of fact, it's interesting. It almost sounds more like Proverbs than it does Psalms. But blessed is the one whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on His law day and night. Did you hear that? Who meditates on His law day and night. The Lord gives us a law. He speaks to us. And if we want to hear God's voice, we want to know His will, we should put ourselves in a position to hear it, to wrestle with it, to constantly be and interacting with it. Blessed is the one who meditates on His law day and night. Persistently putting yourself in a position to hear the word from the Lord. Or, and I love this metaphor, verse 3, that person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, in whose leaf does not wither. Why? How is it that a tree can yield fruit and have leaves that never wither? Well, you put yourself next to the stream. I mean, irrigation is essential for organic life to be sustained. I mean, if you don't have water that's being added to the plants, then don't be surprised if the plants are withering. And don't be surprised if you feel as if you're starving from not being able to eat the words of life, if you're not actually coming to the dinner table for the meal. You see, if we want to know the will of God, if we want to hear the voice of God, we need to become like a tree and to plant ourselves beside the streams of living water. It reminds me of another image, an image that comes at the very end of the Bible. Revelation chapter 22 says, "Then the angel showed me the river of the water of life, as clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb." The river of life flowing from the throne of God. It is emerging from God Himself. And the stream is going down the middle of the great street of the city. Now listen to this. On each side of the river stood the tree of life. A tree planted beside streams of living water. And the tree of life was bearing 12 crops of fruit, yielding its fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree that are not withering are for the healing of the nations. See, if you want to hear the will of God in your life, or if you want to hear the voice of God speaking, here's my strong exhortation. Put yourself in the places He is speaking the loudest. You know, sometimes whenever we are sitting in our pews and we're struggling because we can't hear God's voice, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good place to be. But we're sitting in our homes, and some people even move to the point where they become raging and frustrated because they're going, God, why won't you speak? One thing I have learned is God is always speaking. The question is, are we putting ourselves in a position to hear Him? The question is, are we even able to receive what it is that He is saying? Where does God speak the loudest? With broken people. You want to hear God speak? Go put yourself next to people that are homeless. You want to hear God speak? Go put yourself next to the invalids inside the hospital room, or maybe the people that are struggling on hospice. You want to hear God speak? You go to the broken. You find the outcasts. Because whenever Jesus was on this earth, one of the things I found was the living water always seemed to appear where people were in need, where people were broken. As a matter of fact, the living water was also a topic of conversation when Jesus interacts with the woman at the well at John chapter 4. A woman that at noonday goes out to the well because she was an outcast, because she was ostracized, because she was not just a Samaritan half-breed, but she was also a scandalous woman that even the women of the Samaritan village had cast out of their midst. And what do you know? The stream of living water is found once again sitting next to someone that is broken. I mean, whenever you think of Jesus' ministry, you think of Him going to the lepers. You think of Him reaching out to the people like the Samaritan woman. Time and time again, Jesus is found with the broken. He's found to the needy because doctors tend to find their way to the sick. If you want to hear the will of God for your life, you need to put yourself in the position where He speaks the loudest. And I have found it is in my brokenness. It is in my wounds. It is with broken people and the down and out and the outcast, where God's will and God's voice seems to resonate deeply, loudly, unmistakably. My challenge for you this week is this. Plant yourself by the stream of living water. Put yourselves in the position so that as the water flows, it will inevitably nurture your roots. It will inevitably interact with who you are. It will inevitably fill you up and guide you into His good and perfect will. My challenge for you this week is to find the streams of living water, to plant yourself there, and prepare yourself to grow. I love you guys. I'll talk to you next week.